Hey BookTube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you're new to me and this is the first time you're seeing this face, hello, what's up? My name's Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So that's why you're here, because that's what's gonna be happening today. If you're not new to me, thank you for always tuning in and continued support. I really do appreciate it. So today for you, I have a brand new tag video. This is in collaboration with 9 other ladies over here on BookTube, and this is the Romance Journey book tag. So if that sounds interesting to you and you'd like to learn about my romantic book journey, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's get talking some books. Okay, so the Romance Journey book tag is a collaboration along with 9 other ladies over here on BookTube. Becky over at Beccie Reads reached out to me and a bunch of other ladies, and we all contributed a question for this tag. So this is a true collaborative tag. We have 10 questions, and they span from actually specific books to just feelings on romance in general. So the 10 ladies involved, excluding myself, I did contribute a question, but I'm not going to read my name off, are as follows. Ava over at Ava's Romance Books, Becky over at Beccie Reads, Bree over at In Love and Words, Caitlin at The Love Librarian, Crystal at A Crystal's Bookish Life, Jess over at Honest Fiction, Kaylani at Kaylani Simply Me, Kelsi at Ruffalo Reads, and Sam at Sam Reads a Little. And I will have all those ladies' channels linked down below. So if you're not already following them or subscribed to them, please go check them out. They are all fantastic and they give fantastic content. And also, we'll be uploading all of our tag videos on the same day. So you will have 10 of this book tag to marathon the fuck out of on Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to all of my lovely booktubers out there and all my lovely subscribers. So we have 10 questions. Each person that I rattled off actually contributed a question. So I'll let you know who asked what question and then my answer for it. So the first question is from our collaborator starter, our, person who created this whole tag to begin with, the idea of it. And that is Becky over at Beccie Reads. And her question is about how old were you when you started reading romance, and do you remember the first romance that you read? So this is kind of a tough question for me because I have not always been a romance reader. I dabbled in it, but then I started hardcore reading it just recently. So when I started dabbling in it, I was in probably high school. I'll probably say about freshman year, maybe. And I think the first true romance book that I read, and when I mean true romance book, I mean that this is the main plot of the book, is the romance. Like, that was the whole concept by writing this book, was to write about this connection between these two individual people and building this relationship. Was Where the Wild Rose Blooms by Lori Wick. Looks like this. I was a freshman in high school when I read this, and I wanted something romantic. I actually seeked out a romantic book for a book report or something. I can't remember exactly what I had to read it for, but I wanted a romantic book, so I sought this one out. So I picked this book because it was a romance. So that's why I would say that this is probably the first romance book that I really read. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I actually reread it last year and gave it 5 stars, which I gave it the same as well. And I picked it out because the heroine's name is Jackie. So this was also the very first book I ever read where the lead character's name was Jackie, which I thought was really, really cool. So yeah, freshman in high school. But then it just became a dabbling. I didn't really seek romance out. If I came across it, I came across it. It wasn't until 2022 when I came back on BookTube that I actually started seeking out romance books, for sure. So kind of a twofer on that question. The next question is from Crystal at Crystal's Bookish Life, and she asks, did you deliberately seek out romance or did you stumble upon it, and how? When it comes to Where the Wild Rose Blooms, I deliberately sought it out. But after that, I would stumble across it. I would find books that sound interesting from the synopsis, but I didn't really realize they were hardcore romance, or I'd pick them up for another type of genre, and there end up being a heavy romantic element in it. Paulina Simon's The Bronze Horseman was definitely one of those. I picked it up for the historical fiction element and fell in love with the romantic part of it. I mean, the historical fiction element is fucking dope in it, but I loved that romance between Alexander and Tatiana. Fuck me, that thing was great. I loved it. Another one was The Vincent Boys by Alice Clayton. I think she writes The Vincent Boys. Or no, Abby Glines. I can't remember who. I'll put a picture of it right here. I can't remember who writes it off the top of my head, but I came across it and I liked the idea of the two brothers. Turns out it was a very heavy romance with some steamy themes in it. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Diana Gabaldon's Outlander, which is literally one of my favorite books, I picked because of the historical fiction element and fell in love with the romance. So in the beginning of my, I was very stumbling upon. I didn't really seek a lot of those out. It wasn't until just last year, 2022, when I came across Jen over the Book Refuge's channel, and she was doing the Mafia Romance Readathon, where I had to seek out Mafia romance, and I became a fucking addict, addicted to it. I just could not get enough. I started reading all of these books, and that's when my channel really started to morph from historical fiction and fantasy to this romantic, dark romance element that I have rocking for me now. So definitely I've done both sides, and now I primarily seek out romances with, as well as historical fiction, because those are my two favorite genres at the current moment. That's what I'm feeling right now. And so I definitely seek it out now because I want it. I need it. It's like a fucking drug, and I blame Jen at the Book Refuge for it. But I fucking love that bitch. I love you, Jen. Anyway. Question 3 is from Kelsi Kelsi is from Ruffalo Reads. And her question is, did you start with traditionally published or indie, and has it switched? I would say, because I dabbled and I would just kind of stumble across, I would say I started off with traditionally published, stuff that I found in big box stores, stuff that was like widely known. And then as my tastes developed and my channel started morphing and I started seeing all these great recommendations from these indie authors, it has now progressed into indie. But I think I own a really nice balance of indie and traditionally published authors in my collection. I think I have a nice balance, but currently I've been reading a lot of indie stuff. At least I think it's indie. Some books I think eventually turn into actually traditionally published, but they start off as indie. So when I got them, they were traditionally, but they were originally indie. So kind of, that little layover thing. But yes, I think it switches back and forth. Just depends on my taste. A lot of the darker stuff tends to be indie, and I just really like the dark shit. I do. Let's just be honest about it. The 4th question comes from Jess over at Honest Fiction. And she asks, what was a romance trope you were afraid to try but ended up loving? This is actually hilarious, because when I read this question originally, I thought about this. Because none of the tropes really actually intimidated me. None of them seemed, oh my God, there's no way I can read that. There's no way I can handle that. Absolutely not. There's no way. Because I've always known I have like 0 fucking triggers. And if I do have triggers, I'm that bitch that's like, I'm gonna put myself through it anyway. Yep, gonna do it anyway, because why the fuck not? Why not? Somebody's got to. So the triggers and some of the darker tropes that might have been more intimidating for some people, they didn't bother me. But if I had to pick a trope that definitely gives me the most concern when I go into it, is second chances. Believe it or not, second chances. Because I could never make that shit work in real life. I had tried getting back with ex-boyfriends and it never fucking worked. It ended up worse than how it ended the first fucking time. And I could never make that shit work. So going into second chances, I'm always kind of like, how in the fuck do you do this? Like, really? I feel very skeptical walking into second chance romances, even though now I like seek them out. I still walk in very, very skeptical, because I want to know how they do it. And I'm jealous that these characters can totally fucking rock this shit. I'm like, damn it. That shit doesn't happen in real life. Fuck, I wish it did. I wish it worked out like that sometimes. And then I hear about real life stories that actually happens like that. I'm like, fuck you, bitch. Damn it. You know? But it never worked for me. I was never the second chance kind of giver person when it came to areas of like the heart like that. So they are the ones that definitely give me the most concern, but I find myself seeking them out because I love how authors tie the previous to the present and just the bridges they create and also how the character arcs develop. I like seeing those connections and ties. I get a huge kick out of that. So, yep. The next question is from Caitlin over at The Love Librarian. And her question is there a romance book you read early on in your journey that you would rate differently today? There probably is. But right now, the only book that comes to mind is The Thornbirds by Colleen McCullough. This is not it is romance genre, but it is also cross genres. It's also historical fiction, which is what I read it for. And I read it in the 8th grade. This book has haunted me since I read it in the 8th grade. And I've only read it the one time. I've never reread it. Because this book is the first time I cried for characters. I got so attached to them that they emotionally affected me. So I feel like if I were to read it now, I would rate it much differently because I was in the 8th grade when I read this book. 8th grade. There is a romance in this with a huge ass age gap and a priest to boot with an illegitimate child, death of a child, family drama, huge heavy hitting tropes and triggers. And I read it in the 8th grade. Fuck yes, I'm probably going to rate this thing fucking different. I'm 35 years old now. I am not the same girl I was in the 8th grade. For one, I've had sex. So that couple sex scenes, totally going to read differently now. Totally. I was just excited that I read a book that had the word that was like kind of dirty. You know, I was like, ooh, I'm being bad. You know, now I'm just kind of like, really? Okay, good luck with that. If I could talk to 8th grade Jack, I'd be like, you've got, yeah, just you wait, sweetheart. You'll get there. So I would definitely look at this book entirely different because I'm in a completely different mindset. I'm a fucking adult. I'm a mother who, you know, with this age gap, this priest watches this young girl grow up and then has an affair with her. And I'm just like, I would be weirded the fuck out. Not even gonna lie about it. Probably still love the book. At least I hope I would. But I refuse to reread this book. And I refuse to watch the miniseries because this book has such an important part of my history as a reader, because this is the first book that I got really attached to, that I cried during, that I can remember crying during, that I was so attached to the characters, and I rooted for some, and I felt the pain of the loss for others. And I wanted that romance, even though looking back on it, it's like, really? Wow. You know, I refuse to read this book. I've contemplated it, but every time I go to think about it, I don't want to ruin that memory. I want to preserve that memory of Jackie, you know, that innocent, naive girl who never got attached to anything and then finally found something that spoke to her so much that she couldn't let it go. And she felt it. So, you know, I refuse to reread this book, but if I had to, I most definitely would probably rate this thing a lot differently now. And for different reasons. I would be definitely looking at different aspects of this book. And it's just because I'm older. It's just because I'm older and I have different experiences, different life events. I grew the fuck up. I'm not a child anymore. So, for sure. The next question is from Bree, and she is over at In Love and Words, and she asks, how has your taste in romance evolved over the years? Well, because I wasn't a die-hard romance reader in the beginning, it was something I just kind of came across. I didn't really have a specific type of romance that I enjoyed. I know that when I found a book that had dirty scenes in it, I was really excited. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I would talk to people about it. I was very, yeah. And then I had sex and that went out the fucking window. But when I started back on BookTube and I started heavily getting into romance books, I have, in this short amount of time I've been back, I have seen my romance evolve. I got diehard into mafia romance and I learned I liked the dark stuff very, very quickly. And then it progressively got darker and darker and darker and darker. And I looked for not shocking, but thought-provoking, enlightened, things of that nature in the romance. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good smut book. I do. I still love a good smut book, but now I find books with good sex scenes, whether they're well written, they're crazy, they're kinky as fuck, they're dark as fuck. You know, I look for that shit because that's what I want now. And before, it didn't really matter. I was just like, ooh, there's a sex scene in this. This is super spicy. Oh my God. Now, I want the super spice and I want it, but I also want the connection between the two people. I want to see the growth of the relationship. I want to feel the connection between these two individuals or multiple individuals, depending on what kind of book I'm reading. I want the human experience that I don't get to experience because I'm not in that predicament. I want to know what that would feel like. I want to be able to put myself in that character spot to understand what it would feel like, to be that kind of person or experience that type of love, physical, emotional, sexual, whatever. So it has evolved over the years as I have grown, because as you grow, you want and experience you want different things and you experience different things and you enjoy different things. But in the short time that I've been a addicted romance reader, I've even felt it changing. And maybe that's because I went in, started off dark. I didn't go light. Then I'm kind of like, I kind of want I want the connection now. Can I get the connection? But at the same time, I love a good sex scene. I fucking love it. And the kinkier and the darker, the better. I'm pretty much all in. So, I don't know. It has changed from dabbling and just kind of coming across to becoming a very finite thing that I'm looking for. But even that finite thing is starting to evolve as well. For sure. I think it's a constant evolution. For sure. The next question is from Kaylani over at Kaylani Simply Me. And she asks, what is the most powerful romance that you have read that left a lasting impact? I think all romances have some form of lasting impact if they are written well and they are received at the right time. And what I mean by that is writing it well, the human connection's there. Whether it's the human connection of there is not mutual respect, and that's the dynamic of the relationship, or if there is a, top and bottom dynamic, if the dynamic of the relationship is clearly written and clearly understood, whether it is a respect kind, whether it's a degrading kind, whether it's an understanding kind, whether it is a kinky kind, as long as the dynamic between the two components, the two people involved or multiple people, is clearly explained, clearly understood, and clearly felt and well written, I think that's going to have a lasting impact one way or the other. And if it's well received. you can read a book at one point in time in your life and then read again later on, and you're going to get a different story because your life has changed. You have evolved. You have gone through different things. So to have a book being lasting and impactful, I have to get it at the right time. I have to receive it at the time I need to receive it. Or it may not have the impact that it has on somebody else. So I think all books in general, romance, historical fiction, fantasy, whatever genre you're in, definitely those two components have to be met. But within romance, for sure, you have to receive that romance at the right kind of time, because romance is such an interpersonal thing. It is different for everybody. So the romantic genre, there's a reason why there's so many fucking subgenres and so many minute, definite, small, minute little microcosms of worlds in our romance genre books, because everybody has a different thing. Nobody's romance is the same to one person or another. Something that is dark, twisty, and sick and twisted to me is a walk in the fucking park to somebody else. A walk in the fucking park to somebody else is dark and twisted and fucking right up my goddamn alley. So for me, I don't have a romance that an individual one that has impacted me, except one, and that actually answers the next question, which was my question. And my question was, what was the romance book that told you this is what I'm looking for in a personal life and a partner? So to answer question 8 and to answer question 7 and my question, that book's Diana Gabaldon's Outlander. This is the story of Jamie Fraser and Claire Randall. Claire Randall literally falls back into time, into like 1743 Scotland, during the Highland Clan uprisings. And she's a nurse, and Jamie and her meet, and to save Claire's life from the British who were hunting her, they marry her off to Jamie. And you're probably wondering how this book affected my life. Well, let me tell you how this book changed my life when I read it. When I picked up this book, I was not in a very healthy relationship. He didn't abuse me. He didn't verbally assault me. It was nothing like that. It was just, I was looking for something and I was trying to force it upon him. And he was backlashing it because he didn't want to be that person. And neither one of us wanted to walk away because we both thought the other could be what the other person needed. And the truth of the fact is, we couldn't. It was a 17-year age gap. I was not in the right place for him, and he was not in the right place for me. But we both had this idea that we could be what we needed for each other because we were so adaptable for everybody else. It wasn't a healthy relationship, not in the sense that like traditional healthy, but it just wasn't the right relationship for me at the time. And that's when I picked up this book. And the character traits of Jamie Fraser. Now, Jamie Fraser has amazing character traits. Not only is he Scottish, not only is he fucking beautiful, he is nicknamed the King of Men for reasons, okay? There are a lot of things that work for him in this. But the characteristic trait that I picked out that stuck with me and lasted with me to this day was how accepting he was of Claire. How accepting. Blindly accepting of her. Claire was not a virgin. She was married prior. Actually, she's married when she falls back into time. She was from a different time frame. She had the mouth of a sailor. She didn't take shit from people. She didn't follow societal norms in her own time frame, let alone a time frame where women didn't have any rights whatsoever. And he blindly accepted her. Now, yes, there is the plot line that they married her to save her life, but Jamie wasn't the only guy that was able to do it, but he chose to do it. They had a very beneficial relationship to each other. He finally was no longer single, only guy in his camp that was, not bedded a woman because he was a virgin. They benefited each other on both sides, but Jamie accepted her for all of her, in his world, faults. All the stuff she couldn't do. All this stuff, all the ways she was not your typical average female of this time period. Now, she wasn't, but he didn't know this when he married her. He doesn't know anything about her falling back into time. He accepts her blindly, falls in love with her before knowing any of that. And that was the trait that I picked up on. That was something that I wanted for the person that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And I found it. I found it in my husband. I found him accepting me for everything. Good, bad, ugly, beautiful, crazy, whatever. I have a mouth like a sailor, and he doesn't bat a fucking eye at it. I am nuts, and he doesn't bat an eye at it. I have grandiose ideas, and he just lets me go in this cloud and then kind of work my way down. But he still supports me. One reason why my YouTube experience has been so much more successful this go around is because of him, because he has supported me in it. He pushes me to do it. He encourages me to do it. He blindly accepted me, and I didn't have to change. I didn't have to be something that I wasn't. I could be exactly what I was, whether it was good, bad, crazy, fucking pissed off, happy-go-lucky, a little sex kitten, horny as hell, or just a fucking prude for months. He accepted it. He accepted me for as I am. Now, does he get in my face when it gets to be too much? Yes, he puts me in my place, just like Jamie put Claire in her place. And I love that character. He was never scared. Even though he blindly accepted her, he still knew when she was being a raging bitch and said, hey, you know what? This is bullshit. Especially after he knew where she came from. Like, if you want to survive, you need to follow these codes. Like, behind closed doors, we can do this your way, but outside, no one's gonna fucking understand this shit. But even then, he still allowed her to be her own person and supported her in her own way. He was so supportive. He was so blindly accepting of her, and she didn't abuse that. She didn't abuse that privilege of that blind respect, and that was something I took from her. That, okay, if someone's gonna give me this blind trust and accept me for everything that I am and everything I can be and everything that I was and everything that I wasn't, then I can give them the same respect of not abusing it. And I'm one of those people, if you give me an inch, I will walk a fucking mile over your ass. And I refuse to do that with my husband because he blindly accepted me, because he reminds me so much of Jamie Fraser. So this is the book that taught me what I wanted in a partner. This book right here. So if I had to pick a book to answer number 7, Lasting Impact, it's this one. It is this one, because this book also, Claire and Jamie are a fucking team. And that is what I strive to show in my relationship with my husband to my daughter, that you need to find someone that, yes, you're not always going to get along. Are you going to fight once in a while? Yes. But you need to learn how to make up, because you guys are a team. And if you guys are not equal on that team level, you see eye to eye, where you fail, they can succeed, and where they fail, you can succeed, where you balance each other out, then it's probably not going to fucking work. You need to find your teammate. You need to find your person. You need to find that person you can rely 100% on. And it's all because of this book. All because of it. This is my favorite book for more reasons than just the fucking story. It's because there is a Jackie before this book, and there is a Jackie after this book. This is one of the few books that I literally say can help define the Jackie that you know right now. This is one of the defining books of me. So that's why it's one of my favorite books of all time. The next question comes from Ava. And Ava, you can find at Ava's Romance Books. And her question is, which romance book would you recommend to a romance newbie and to a seasoned romance reader? Romance newbie, I'd recommend this one. I love the romance in it. I love the steam in it. I also love the overarching story to it. Is this a commitment? Yes, because this series right here is the rest of its series. It is a commitment, and it builds on this romance in every single installment, but this is the formation of it. This is the ground roots, and I believe that this romance has a really good ground roots. It's got great consent. It's got a great first time. It's got humor. It's got passion. It's got steam. It's got intrigue. It's got everything. This book is fucking perfect, okay? I love this book. I love it so, so much. So I would definitely recommend this to a romance newbie, because this is not just a romance book. It's also historical fiction. So it's a nice blend. It's a nice blend of the two. and it might entice you for other things, for sure. And it also does have some dark triggers in it, so this gives you a pretty good idea if you could handle dark shit. I mean, it's got some comedy, it's got spice, but it's also got some dark taboo triggers in it. And if you can handle it in this form, you can handle it in other forms where it's maybe a consenting form of dark trigger and things of that nature. So I think this book was perfectly written, perfectly executed, and I fucking can't not rave about this book. It's literally my favorite book of all fucking time. No, we'll just put it there. I don't want to mess it up. A book that I would recommend to a seasoned romance reader. I'm going to have to say I would probably be asking them for a recommendation. I would have to definitely be asking them for one of those. I would not consider myself a seasoned romance reader. I definitely consider myself a dark trigger romance reader for sure, because those are the ones that I'm just like, gimme. Give it to me. But I wouldn't say that I'm seasoned, because there are a lot of staple romance books that I have yet to read and yet to really experience. And there's a lot of tropes that I have never experienced. So when it comes to a seasoned romance reader, I would definitely have to be saying, well, can you recommend me something? That's what I would do for that question. Question number 10 comes from Sam over at Sam Reads a Little. And her question is, in your eyes, what are 3 perfect romances? This question, when I read it, was probably the hardest one to answer, because I think that there are perfect romances out there. I do. But they're perfect because they speak to me on levels that they needed to speak to me. They might not necessarily speak to you. And you're probably thinking, well, this is such a fucking cop-out answer. You know what? It kind of is. Because romance is an interpersonal thing. I've already said that. It is between 2 people, and it is different between each set of people. You can have a specific type of romance with one person, and that same type of romance will not work with another person. The same goes with books. I can read a romance book that someone I look up to and respect and love everything she reads and not like it, because it didn't speak to me on the level it spoke to her, because we didn't have the same life experiences. We don't have the same life stories. So for me to say what 3 perfect romances are out there, this is damn near impossible. It is impossible for me to genuinely answer this, because I don't want to say something is perfect when it's not perfect for everybody. But I have said that there are perfect books out there. I have. And this is one of them. Diana Gabaldon, Outlander, is perfect, in my opinion. It has everything, not just the romance. It's not just a perfect romance. It's a perfect historical fiction. It's a perfect military style book. It's a perfect representation of this very minute time in history. It's a microcosm, and I think it's excellent. I think A Court of Mist and Fury is perfect, but you need the whole series to really understand that romance as being perfect. So is it perfect if you need multiple books to really get it? I don't know. Perfect is in the eye of the beholder, and so is romance. So a perfect romance to me is never going to be a perfect romance to you. But what I can say is what a perfect romance to me is something that shows true connection between the parties involved, whether it's multiple or 2. A great understanding of each other and their arcs. A great storyline that works with the characters that have been developed. The characters feel like they actually belong in the story. Great sex. I think perfect romances should have great sex. Whether it's dark or PG. I think it needs to be there, and it needs to be great. It needs to be well written, and it needs to be understood. And I shouldn't have to look shit up to understand where people's legs and arms are. That's the thing. And the third thing that makes a perfect romance is the time that you receive it. You need great connection, you need great sex, and you need to get it at the right time. You need to read it under the right mindset. And if you're not in the right mindset, put it down and come back to it, because it might be the perfect romance for you. It just wasn't at that time. So instead of answering what are 3 perfect romances, those are the 3 traits I look for in a perfect romance. I hope that helps. That is the romance journey book tag, guys. And I am going to tag Joe at Not So Average Joe and Jen over the book Refuge. I hope you guys have fun. And to all my collaborators, thank you so much for doing this with us, and for Becky for inviting me to collab with you. This was super, super fun. And I'll see you guys all soon on the next big one.